It's live here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and our nation's capital, or might it be St. Louis, Missouri? And this is CarEdge Live for Thursday, January 22nd, with your hosts, me, Ray, here in Ventnor, and Zach Wells, somewhere in America. And yes, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we do apologize for being away for nearly a week, but some things are out of our control. How are you today, handsome?
Pops, just a couple things. One, you said it's live, not it's noon. So I don't know. Double check that. Rewatch the tape when you get a chance afterwards. We got to work on your intro. Two, check your internet, man.
It's been a week, buddy. I forgot how the intro goes. It's noon here, or it's live. I don't know. We'll have to work on that.
And check your internet after today's show. You're freezing up on us a couple times here this morning. Hate to put you in that predicament, but we can hear you A-okay. Now, here's the deal, folks. Today, our show is brought to you by CarEdge.com. We're going to be talking about Ford, Volkswagen, Jeep, and Mazda and how they can't lower prices fast enough. We've got the latest data from Cox Automotive that we're going to run through here in just a second. A friendly reminder, CarEdge.com is the website my dad and I started 6 years ago, and we're offering a little end-of-month promotion, $250 off our car buying service, 25% off CarEdge Pro, and we've got $250 off the extended warranty back over there by Fair on the website as well. So check out CarEdge.com. We're seeing here in the chat, Dad, video looks good for you. So it must have been on my end. Sorry, y'all, the WeWork bill. Maybe I didn't pay it this month. Dad, the latest new car inventory data. New vehicle inventory contracts as industry enters pivotal 2026. Now, we're going to pick on a couple automakers here, Ford, Volkswagen, Jeep, and Mazda in a second. But there's actually a really surprising undertone to all of this, which is the days supply of inventory and the total amount of new vehicle inventory actually contracted significantly at the end of last year heading into this year. So what's your overarching read, Dad, on new vehicle inventory? And then we're going to hone in on Ford, VW, Jeep, and Mazda in just a second.
Well, let's say if the manufacturers paid any attention to the pundits at all, they understand that we are expected to see a decline in new car auto sales in 2026 from, they're saying somewhere from 16.2 million in 2025 to perhaps between 15.5 and 15.8 million in 2026. Well, if you believe that to be the case, and I believe most of the manufacturers do believe that to be the case, then you're going to plan your inventory accordingly for the first quarter of 2026. Not uncommon for inventory levels to be significantly lower in January and February, simply because they're the two slowest selling months of the year. So why would you want to burden your dealers with the added cost of having to carry the interest charges on excess inventory? So the fact that inventory has dropped doesn't surprise me. What would be a surprise is what happens come March 1st when we get into spring selling season.
I want to dumb it down a little bit, Dad, if you don't mind. So you're talking about why would they increase the burden of interest costs? Like you're going super deep. Let's start a little bit higher if you don't mind. So you're saying it's actually not a surprise for inventory levels to contract in January and February because manufacturers expect to sell fewer cars.
Yes.
That's what you're trying to say here?
I thought that's what I articulated, but perhaps not. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so then why would Cox Automotive here, Dad? They're showing that this is the largest market day supply drop that we've seen in recent memory. I mean, this is not normal is what they've quoted out here. Let me find it. Give me 1 second here. Down sharply from 92 days. Inventory fell precipitously, decline of nearly 8%. Whether the reduction reflects deliberate production discipline, robust holiday sales, or supply chain constraints bleeding into the new year. I mean, they're making this sound like, Dad, this is much more significant than not wanting to overburden dealers with inventory.
Well, I think the key there is I think it really does reflect deliberate production discipline. You know, you would be hard-pressed if you are in the automotive industry to not understand the implications of what we saw in 2025 as far as pricing and where things were headed. And every talking head, every pundit, every forecaster in the automotive sector has said new car sales are going to decline in 2026. And I think the manufacturers are well aware of that. And I think they've planned accordingly for that. Now, will it come back to bite them? I don't know. Is it the biggest decline we've seen recently? Perhaps, but if your business model suggests that sales are going to decline, then why wouldn't you be preparing for that? And why wouldn't you allow your inventory levels to decline?
So now what's interesting, Dad, is some brands, we look at this every single month, some brands are better at inventory discipline than others. So, okay,
Yes.
if you all agree with my dad, I'll go along with it here. So the reason that we saw month over month a significant, I mean, we were at 3 million new cars in dealer inventory at the beginning of last month.
Yes.
Now we're at 2.77 million. This day's supply, which again, I want to dumb things down a little bit here, Dad, not because our audience needs things dumbed down, but because the simplification of this helps me make more sense of it. 76 days supply means it would take 76 days to sell all these 2.77 million new cars in inventory right now, based on current sales rate and how much inventory there is. That was 92 last month. The higher that number is, the more leverage consumers have, the more pain the auto industry is feeling. So again, we saw huge declines month over month in terms of inventory levels and how much pain the auto industry is in. This actually starts to look more like a seller's market than a buyer's market, these latest numbers that we have. Well, then look at things based on each manufacturer. That's where we get into Ford, Volkswagen, Jeep, and Mazda not being able to lower prices fast enough, because when we look at that day's supply number broken out by brand, Dad, you can see Volkswagen has a 143 days supply of inventory over there on the right. Jeep has a 130 days supply of inventory, Ford a 96 days supply of inventory, Mazda a 93 days supply of inventory. Now is probably a great time to mention that tomorrow Joe Lewis from JC Lewis Ford and Mazda will be joining us to talk about how his year ended up and what's going on in his neck of the woods. But Dad, this would then demonstrate that these brands did a worse job, to your point, around inventory management, and those dealers are sitting on inventory, which brings us all the way back to the way you originally framed this, which is dealer floor plan costs, which obviously cost dealerships money. But let's explain that. Again, let's start simple. We're just getting back into the groove here.
Well, let's realize that dealers do not pay cash for their new car inventory. They finance it just like you and I. Okay, they get a slightly better rate because, well, they're financing probably between $5 and $15 million. And, you know, the average asking price for cars today is pretty close to $50,000, which means that the average cost for the dealership to finance that car sitting on the lot after the assistance from the manufacturer goes away is probably pretty close to $500 a month. So the per car. So the more cars you have sitting for an extended period of time, the higher your costs are for carrying that inventory. So yes, some manufacturers, and this has been true forever, some manufacturers do a much better job of producing what is needed as opposed to producing, period. And Ford, Volkswagen, Mazda, Jeep, Ram, they've been to the right, up and to the right on this chart for the longest period of time now. And that is a significant issue for their dealer body, as opposed to, say, at Toyota, where they're like at a 28-day supply, where the cost of carrying inventory is negligible.
So this is really, I'm pulling up Igor's comment here. Zach, lower supply equals stronger sales. Some brands looked at Toyota and are now taking the Toyota strategy straight from their playbook. I completely agree with this. So there are certain brands, Ford, Volkswagen, Jeep, Mazda, pretty much every brand to the right of that green line on the screen. So Genesis, Subaru, Acura, Dodge, Kia, Mazda, Nissan, Hyundai, Ford, Buick, Ram, Jeep, Lincoln, Mitsubishi, Mini, Volkswagen, and Chrysler all have a higher days supply of inventory, meaning, again, the higher that number is, the more pain the automaker is in. Now, to the left of that line, those would be the brands that have a better management of their inventory levels, which is, again, your point earlier in the show, Dad. Those are the manufacturers who just are more dialed in when it comes to the vehicles that they're producing. And so Lexus, Toyota, Land Rover, Honda, Infiniti to a degree, BMW, Porsche, Chevrolet, Cadillac, Mercedes-Benz, GMC, they all have a lower days supply. And ultimately, those dealerships they have more leverage walking into this new year.
Well, yes. The lower your day supply, the more of a seller's market it is. The higher your day supply, to the right of the 76, which is the national average, the higher your day supply, the more of a buyer's market it is for those brands. So let's phrase it this way. If you are looking to get a great deal, not necessarily a great vehicle, but a great deal, meaning a sizable discount, the likelihood of that happening is with brands that have an excess or over amount of inventory, and it is less likely to happen with the brands that have a limited supply of inventory. If you want quality, and many of the brands that have a limited supply are known as quality brands, especially Toyota and Lexus, you're going to pay more for that quality and probably not get quite as good a deal as you could if you were looking at a Volkswagen or a Mazda at this particular point in time.
Now, that being said, Dad, I want to talk about the implications of production strategy going into 2026, because a lot of vehicles are leftover 2025. So the next place I want to look here is I actually want to go to the CarEdge car search. And on the CarEdge car search, I want to look at how many leftover vehicles do we still have out there. So I'm going over here, new cars, and I want to go to 2025. We still have 746,628 leftover new cars for sale nationwide right now. So it doesn't matter how materially these manufacturers are restricting the production of new vehicles. They still have 750,000 old leftover vehicles out there. And that's where the Fords, the Volkswagens, the Jeeps, and the Mazdas are really running into trouble right now, as they overproduced for 24 and 25. And those leftover vehicles are now lingering into 2026. That's where the prices have to come down significantly. We're almost at the end of January already. You can't afford to have vehicles sitting around that long.
No, you can't. And what that shows is that approximately a little less than 25% of on-hand inventory are leftovers. And so if you are the consumer that wants a deal, savings, a discount, well, you should be able to get that on the nearly 750,000 leftovers that are available. Obviously, some dealers will work more closely with you than others, but those are vehicles that there is a motivation to get rid of them. They are not going to get more valuable as we get deeper into 2026. Okay, customers are going to want even more significant savings on those 2025, say in April, May, June. You don't want them hanging around. So the dealers need to get rid of those now. So if you are somebody that's after discounts and significant savings, and you really wanted a 2026, if you want those discounts and significant savings, you probably need to be looking at a 2025, and you very well could end up getting the discounts that you're looking for.
So let's do a little bit of live experimentation. You know I love to do this. So let's come back over here. So I called out Ford, VW, Jeep, and Mazda today because, again, the latest data we have on the new car inventory situation shows those brands well over to the right on this chart, which is the days supply of inventory. So let's come here, Dad, and let's start with Ford. We don't need to be searching nationwide. Let me change that really quickly. We'll just do within 100 miles of Boys Town, Nebraska. That's where we are today. So let's look at that. It's some of these vehicles that have been sitting around. 121 days on the market for this $85,000 Platinum. 94 days on the market for this Ranger, which is only $40,000. Another F-150, 101 days on the market, $79,000. So there's a bit of a theme here that many of these are expensive. And you can see, here's a perfect example of one. 253 days on the market, but 4,000 miles. This is a service loaner that the dealership has found a way to repurpose. Here's an F-250 that the dealership has found a way to repurpose. So These vehicles, Dad, that are leftovers, they obviously have high price points, but also seemingly many of them not only have been sitting for a while, but they've also been put into service loaner use. At least that's what I'm noticing on first glance here for Ford.
It appears in many cases they have. And that's not to say that you can't get a good deal on a service loaner. In many cases, you can. Those vehicles have been written down. They've been depreciated since they were first put into service loaner fleet, so that the dealer owns them for less than a absolute brand new one with 0 miles on it. And oftentimes, as a retired service loaner, they are they are they have an extended warranty from the manufacturer that's available to help make up for the 1,300 miles in the case of that Ford Bronco 4-door.
So that's on the Ford side. So the other automaker that I called out, Dad, would be Volkswagen. We know Volkswagen has the slowest selling car in the United States of America right now, the ID4. Let's take a quick peek. So this is within 100 miles of Boys Town, Nebraska. We've only got 73. So I'm going to open this up a little bit. Let's see, within 500 miles. Here we go. What are we working with here? Tiguan's 124 days on the market, 162 days on the market. A Jetta 207 days on the market. These are relatively affordable vehicles, Dad.
Yes.
These are relatively low price points, but still not selling. I'm interested here. Look at this ID Buzz. Wow, this is fascinating. So actually, let's click into this one. Let's spend a second because we know EVs are slow selling now in a post-tax incentive world. Yeah. MSRP of $62,280, Dad. The dealer's advertising it for $49,780, even though the invoice price is $59,789. Drum roll, please. None have sold in the last 45 days in this area, and this one's been sitting for 382 days. This is, Dad, this is the perfect example of Volkswagen can't drop the price fast enough.
Yeah, this is a perfect example of building what it is that people don't necessarily want. It is a damn cute looking vehicle. Okay, to remind us of the old VW bugs, not bugs, the buses, the vans. And so yeah, it's got some relatively cute looks to it, but apparently that doesn't match up with what people are looking for. We know EV sales are tough to begin with, and many of Volkswagen's EV products have been slower selling than a lot of their competitors. But yeah, you're right. This is a vehicle that you can't seem to get the price low enough to get somebody interested enough to buy it. 382 days. That seems like a long time. It recently celebrated a birthday.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes with cake and a candle.
Hopefully it does. Okay, so that's Volkswagen. So now let's go back here. What was the other brand I called out? Jeep. So let's pull up Jeep.
Yes.
Let's see what's going on, Jeep. Holy cow, look at that. 12,790 leftover Jeeps.
Within a 500-mile radius, yeah.
Yeah, within of Boys Town. And again, price point here, time on market. The Cherokee L, 74 days on market, $67,000 vehicle. The Grand Cherokee L. Let's look at a few more of these here. Actually, for Jeeps, not too terribly expensive. Many of these under $50,000. But Dad, it's just another example of vehicles sitting for months on end that aren't selling. It's a perfect example of why, if you, to your point earlier, you can get a better deal on many of these vehicles than you can the brand new 26s. And again, it goes back to your point. We'll look at Mazda in a second here. Production management. Well, you can't go back in time. You can't unproduce these prior model year vehicles. They've already been produced, invoiced, and sold to dealers. I'll pull up Mazda really quickly here. There's over 5,000 leftover Mazdas for sale right now. 147 days on the market, 179 days on the market, 139 days, 147 days. There's just such an incentive because again, if I get rid of the, let's do this really quickly. So there's 5,346 leftovers. What about, let me do this. Whoops, I wanted this to actually be 2026. We've got 13,000 non-leftovers. So that's a lot of leftovers, man, that they still haven't sold yet.
Yeah, that's 25% of their inventory. Okay, if you take 13 and add the 5, so yeah, 25% of their
it's a third of their inventory.
Yeah, it is crazy. So, some manufacturers do a much better job than others. And we know when we were looking at Jeep, for example, um, in 2025, I believe Jeep sales were actually up year over year for the first time in 5 or 6 years. And yet they are still inundated with way too many Jeeps at too high of price points. And I know Jeep internally is trying to address that and to earn back some market share and some customer loyalty. And the reason they lost customers is they went too upscale too quickly, and their customers couldn't go along for the ride. They didn't feel like getting taken for a ride. One of the two.
So in many cases that a lot of these manufacturers, even though the initial data suggests that as we head into the new year, there's less inventory and a lower day supply, which again is a net negative for consumers, many of these manufacturers, it's much more nuanced. Many of these manufacturers are already actually, they're in a bad position headed into 2026 because these leftover 25s haven't sold. Doesn't matter if you're a Jeep and you've realized now that you've overpriced your vehicles. It takes a long time to turn these big ships. And so the new vehicles that do come to market, it's going to be later this year. So I think it's a really important conversation to understand for many of these brands, which again, Cox Automotive is the one, they're the industry conglomerate. They're the ones that put out this data. All the brands to the right of that green line, those are the ones where as consumers, you have more leverage. It is significantly more nuanced than that. That's why we have the CarEdge car search. And for example, again, this is Boys Town, Nebraska. You can look and see what type of leverage you have on any vehicle. So in this particular one, you do have strong leverage because look at the days on market, look at the market day supply, look how many are selling right now in this particular market area. This is the type of research that needs to be done before making outreach to a dealership, because many of these brands, for example, that one, they can't lower their prices fast enough. The car's already been produced. It's already been invoiced. It's already accruing in floor plan costs. They got to get rid of it.
Yes, and it appears from the numbers, the 2.77 million, it appears that many of the manufacturers have decided to take a much more conservative approach for the first quarter of 2026 to literally see where we are at. As we know, many of the manufacturers have discussed there's an affordability crisis. Some have said that they're trying to address that. And I guess what we all need to wait to find out is if their actions match their words. If we actually see them start producing and start marketing the lower priced vehicles that might tend to be more affordable, or have they decided that they can make tidy enough profits just selling, say, 15.8 million new cars a year, as opposed to 16.5 to 17 million new cars a year. So I just think most of them have taken a somewhat conservative approach for the first quarter.
Now let's come here to the chat. We've got from Lego Joe. We appreciate the kind contribution. Thank you so much. $199 lease special for a 2025 Subaru Forester in Denver. Small print quote. Lessee may be responsible for additional charges at the end of the lease term based upon the difference between the residual value and its realized value. Is that absurd?
It is indeed. The residual value is what the lease is based, is one of the factors off of what the lease price is based on. And you are not responsible for the difference between the residual value and what they're calling the realized value. Those type of leases went away, I don't know, in the 80s, maybe the 90s. So yeah, that is an unusual phrasing for a lease. The things that you would be responsible for are any excess wear and tear and any mileage overage that you might have incurred. But if the residual value isn't worth the real value at the time, if the residual value's higher than the real value, that's not your responsibility. That's the leasing company's responsibility for setting the residual where they set it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Dad, let's go ahead and play our favorite game. Let's do our first check-in for the recall counter in 2026. Any guesses in the chat? Who is leading the league in recalls thus far in 2026?
Well, we're 3 weeks in, and somebody averaged 3 a week last year, pretty close. So I'm going to say Ford is sitting at 9 recalls already. And perhaps a Stellantis brand of some kind is in second place.
Okay, so it's not quite 9, but Ford is currently leading with 3 recalls thus far in 2026. Rivian at the number 2 spot. I don't see Dad Stellantis on this list yet.
Wow.
So Ford, Dad, with 3 recalls. One of the more recent ones here impacting 116,000 vehicles, heater risk, 119,000 vehicles as well. So yeah, lots of vehicles already being recalled thus far in 2026. Some things continue to go the way we think.
Some things never change. Recalls at Ford seems to be one of them.
Yeah, it really does. Now, one other thing that I want to bring up today, I looked at some of our OTD quotes that we've been able to capture for our customers. Again, if you're interested, back at CarEdge.com, we help people get out the door price quotes all day long to help them get a fair car deal. This was one I found recently, Dad, we got for a customer. Look at this. This is for a Honda Prelude. You've got an MSRP of $43,195, a dealer discount of $10,000, and then a $15,000 protection package. Just like, what's going on here?
I am guessing that must be like a diamond encrusted condom for a car. I mean, what kind of protection package can you get for $15,000? What I'm assuming that the real MSRP on that vehicle is $43,195. I know that the Prelude just coming out again, many dealers are charging additional dealer markup on those because there seems to be a market for that car. So this is a dealership that obviously wants to say, yeah, we'll give you a big discount, but ultimately you're going to pay $5,000 more than MSRP for the vehicle when we're done with our protection package that goes on every Prelude that comes in.
Just absolutely nuts, that. And yeah, this vehicle is still actually actively for sale. We got this quote for this customer back on Christmas, the day after Christmas on the 26th, and it's still for sale. It's been there for 57 days. And you want to know what state it's in? It's in Florida. But yeah, it's just a crazy way to advertise inventory. We're going to offer it for $10,000 off, which actually, Dad, their online advertisement just has the MSRP. It's just nuts, man. We're going to charge $5,000 over MSRP, but don't you worry because you're getting 10 grand off. It's the lunacy of buying a car. And it's the importance of why you get out the door price quotes. You get real prices before you go to the dealership. Again, we do this back on the website. And you can call the dealership, et cetera, but like get the real price before you go. It's not worth wasting your time.
And it is yet another example of how car dealers treat their customers and why their customers hate them. Okay? It's not like you see a shirt advertised at Kohl's for $29.95. And then when you go in and they tell you, well, they have the upgrade package, and that's another $15. I did an interview, a radio interview, and it was with a gentleman in Boston on WBZ, and we were talking about bait and switch advertising for dealerships, and he said to me, he said, you would just think that's got to be illegal. And as I said to him, absolutely it's illegal. It's just not enforced because the consumer affairs divisions of your state attorney general's office just typically don't have the staff to be able to go around and enforce all the infractions that they see. And it would be nice if, as an industry, that dealerships would say, enough of this. We don't want to play like that anymore. We shouldn't play like that anymore. It's not the proper way to play. But at this point, there's not enough dealers that are willing to do the right thing. And because of them, we will be in business for a very, very, very long time. And I probably should thank them all from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, dealers, for your crazy pricing antics that keep us in business. A friendly reminder, folks, CarEdge.com. If we can assist you with car shopping, selling a vehicle, anything in between, we love that opportunity. We are offering a promotion for a few days here on our car buying service in CarEdge Pro. Again, I mentioned it a second ago. Get the out the door price. Get the out the door price. That is absolutely the most important thing when it comes to buying a car. And we can get you that out the door price back at CarEdge.com. Pops will be back doing this again tomorrow. Grateful to be with everyone. Joe Lewis from JC Lewis will be with us, so please tune in for that. And we'll have a normal schedule here for at least a little bit. And then, Dad, I actually need to update you. I am traveling a bunch more over the coming weeks, but whatever, we'll figure it out. Much love, Pops. Enjoy the afternoon, and I'll see you soon.
Love you as well. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow.